Baton Rouge. And back in the early 2000s, one of the biggest treats of my childhood was driving down to New Orleans to spend the day at Jazzland. I still remember the sounds of roller coasters clanking overhead, the smell of fried food in the air, and the way the park lit up at night. One of my favorite rides was this dark ride called Jocko's Mardi Gras Madness. It was cheesy, but I loved the music and the glowing beads and animatronics. Then Katrina hit, flooded everything, and Jazzland, like a lot of things in New Orleans, never recovered. They boarded it up and walked away. Eventually, the city forgot about it, but I didn't. One summer, when I was home from college, my friends and I were hanging out bored and talking about stuff we missed from growing up. My buddy Marcus brought up Jazzland and said he'd always wanted to go back, just to see what it looked like now. He even mentioned that Jocko's Mardi Gras Madness had been his favorite ride too. So that was it. Later that night, we piled into his car and drove down there. It wasn't hard to get in. Some chain-link fences had been clipped, probably by other explorers before us. We parked off a service road and snuck in with flashlights and headlamps, trying not to think too hard about what we might run into. The place was a wreck. Nature had taken most of it back. Vines growing through rides, cracked pavement, graffiti everywhere. We were quiet at first, walking through what used to be the main entrance, but eventually we relaxed and started laughing, reminiscing about where different rides used to be. We even recognized the old water tower, now rusted and overgrown, still standing like a forgotten relic. There was a strange beauty in the decay, like wandering through a theme park trapped in time. Then Marcus saw the Mardi Gras Madness ride entrance in the distance and lit up. "Dude, we gotta check it out. That thing was so sick back in the day." The building looked like it had taken some damage, but it was mostly intact. The entrance still had that big purple mask hanging above it, though the paint had peeled off in huge chunks. The door was jammed, so we walked around the side and found a busted emergency exit that led into one of the maintenance corridors behind the scenes of the ride. It was pitch black inside, so we clicked on our headlamps. The smell hit immediately. Wet wood, mold, something sour. But the old ride path was still visible. The track where the carts used to go. The props lining the walls, some of them now just heaps of rotted foam. We were whispering and laughing, pointing out anything we recognized from when we were kids. That's when we heard voices. Not echoes, not wind, but real voices. Close. We froze, instantly ducking down, behind what used to be a stack of themed barrels. The voices were coming from deeper inside the ride, beyond the final curve of the track. They were speaking fast, and at first we couldn't make out what they were saying. But then, I heard a phrase I'll never forget. "Move the rest tonight. We ain't waiting till morning." My stomach sank. Marcus looked at me and mouthed, "What the hell?" We crawled forward just far enough to peek around a fake float, and that's when we saw them. 4 guys. 2 of them had pistols tucked into their waistbands. One had a duffel bag open on the ground, with bricks of something wrapped in plastic. It was a drop. A drug handoff. Inside an abandoned kids' ride. I don't know if one of us accidentally kicked something, or if they just sensed movement, but one of the men suddenly turned toward us and said, "Yo, did you hear that?" We didn't wait to find out if he was bluffing. We bolted. I don't even remember which way we ran, just that we tore out of that building faster than I've ever moved. Our lights were bouncing everywhere, slamming into peeling murals and broken props as we sprinted back toward the service lot. We could hear them yelling behind us. At least one of them was chasing. We ducked behind an old concession stand and waited, barely breathing. I thought I was going to throw up. I could see Marcus's headlamp flickering and his hands trembling. The guy chasing us got close, real close, but must have missed where we went. He kept moving, and we waited a full minute before even thinking about moving again. I remember feeling so helpless, crouched behind that shattered counter, just listening. Every rustle of leaves or creak of metal made me jump. We took the long way around the park, looping near the collapsed log flume and behind the old arcade building until we got back to the hole in the fence where we'd come in. Once we were through, we sprinted the last 100 yards to the car. No one said a word the whole ride home. We were soaked with sweat, breathing like we'd just run a marathon. I remember my hands shaking as I tried to unlock my phone to check the time. It was barely past midnight. The next morning, I looked up news stories from that area and found a short article from a couple months back. Police had busted a drug ring using abandoned buildings in East New Orleans as stash spots. They didn't list Jazzland, but I knew what we saw. I'll never forget the feeling of running through that decaying theme park, heart pounding, not from ghosts or legends, but from real people who wouldn't have hesitated to pull a trigger if they thought we were cops or threats. I was 10 years old when this happened, but still remember it like it was yesterday. It was a summer Saturday, blistering hot, and my whole family had driven down to one of those mid-tier amusement parks a few hours from our house. It wasn't huge like Disney, but it had a decent water park, plenty of junk food, and a few roller coasters big enough to make your stomach drop. That year was a big deal, because it was the first time my little brother and I were tall enough to ride one of the big ones. This old wooden coaster called the Timberwolf. It was loud, rickety, and looked like it was going to fall apart every time it barreled around a curve. Naturally, we were obsessed with it. We were there with our parents and our 2-year-old sister. My dad said he'd ride it with both of us, but when we got in line, my brother chickened out. He didn't want to go unless Dad was with him. I was too excited to wait, so I told them I'd go in the single rider line, while they went in the normal line together. My mom couldn't ride at all because of the baby, so she said she'd meet me at the exit ramp once I got off. Everything made sense. Everyone had a plan. It all felt safe. I zoomed through the single rider line, practically bouncing with excitement. It only took about 10 minutes before I was next to board. That's when they paired me with a guy riding alone, probably mid-40s, dressed in a polo shirt and khakis. He looked like somebody's dad, maybe even a teacher. He smiled and asked, "First time on this one?" "Yeah," I said. "You?" "Oh, I've ridden it a few times," he said, tightening the lap bar. "You're brave for going alone." We made small talk during the climb. He didn't say anything weird, just normal stuff like, "How long have you been at the park?" and "Did you try the funnel cake?" Then we dropped, and all the wind got knocked out of me. I screamed and laughed the whole ride. Honestly, it was awesome. When we pulled back into the station, I hopped out and gave a quick wave toward the loading area. My dad and brother were climbing into their car, just about to take off. They both saw me and waved back. I smiled, turned, and headed down the exit ramp expecting to see my mom with my sister in her stroller, probably digging around for a snack or something. But when I reached the bottom, no one was there. No mom, no stroller, no familiar face at all. I stood there for a second, unsure of what to do. I looked around, checked behind a food cart, and peeked around the nearby benches. Nothing. A tiny spark of panic started to light in my chest. I didn't know whether I should stay put or start walking around. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around. It was the man I'd just ridden with. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded but didn't really know what to say. He looked concerned in that helpful adult way, which was reassuring at first. "Your folks not down here yet?" he asked. "My mom said she'd be at the exit," I said. He paused for a second, then said, Well, maybe she had to step away real quick. You want me to walk you to the help desk? It's where lost kids go. They'll make an announcement." I hesitated. "It's okay," he said. "I've got kids of my own. I'll walk you there and stay with you until she shows up." Something in me wanted to trust him. He seemed normal, even kind. So I followed him. We walked past the exit ramp, down a few paths, and I kept expecting to see a sign that said guest services or lost and found. But we didn't. We were walking away from the coaster, then away from the snack stands, then away from the rides altogether. I glanced around and realized we were getting closer to the park exit. I asked, "Is the help desk near the parking lot?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Yeah, just past the gates." That was when I knew something was wrong. He tightened his grip on my wrist and started walking faster. I looked around. There were people nearby, but everyone was laughing, eating, distracted. I thought of my mom, my dad, my sister. Something in me snapped. I yelled, "Let go of me!" Heads turned. He looked straight ahead and muttered, "Shh, don't make a scene." I yelled again, louder this time. "He's not my dad. Help!" That got their attention. Two women with strollers stopped walking. A man in a souvenir shirt looked up from his drink. More people turned to look at us. The man let go of my wrist. He didn't say a word, just turned and bolted. He disappeared into the crowd, and I didn't see where he went. A minute later, a park security guard ran over and stayed with me until they could get in touch with my family. When my mom showed up, she was crying so hard she could barely talk. She'd gone to change my sister's diaper and hadn't realized I'd gotten off the ride already. My dad and brother had no idea anything was wrong. We filed a police report. They took my statement, had me describe the man, and even pulled footage from the security cameras. But far as I know, they never caught him. I don't like to think about what would have happened if I hadn't screamed. I still ride roller coasters. I still love theme parks. But I never, ever let my kids out of my sight. Not even for one ride. This happened 2 summers ago, right before my senior year of college. I'd taken a job at a local theme park to make some extra cash over break. It was mostly boring, sweaty days in the sun, telling kids to keep their arms inside the ride. But I didn't mind. My dad always warned me I'd do something reckless that would ruin my life one day. And he wasn't totally wrong. Because on my last night at the park, I almost did. My friends had been bugging me for weeks. "Dude, let us sneak in with you. You've got keys. Just once. For fun." I always laughed it off. Until the night before my final shift, when I finally caved. I didn't have full access. Just a badge and key to the employee locker rooms and back hallways. But I knew where the master key ring was kept. It wasn't hard to borrow it without anyone noticing. We met around midnight by the employee entrance. The park had been closed for hours. It was completely still. No music, no kids screaming. Just the rustle of wind through empty stalls and flickering security lights. Honestly, it was kind of beautiful. We slipped in through the back. First stop, the concession stands. Stale nachos, warm soda, and a few unopened beers made us feel like kings. Then we raided one of the prize booths, won ourselves a few stuffed animals without playing a single game. But that wasn't enough. I worked the Buzz Blaster ride. One of those indoor coasters where you shoot targets with fake laser guns. It was all dark lighting, neon signs, and slow-moving cars on a track. I told the guys I could boot it up. I'd run it hundreds of times that summer. Knew all the switches, safety overrides, everything. I powered it up from the control room, and we took turns riding through, shooting targets, laughing like idiots. No one was outside, no one was watching. It felt invincible. That is, until someone started knocking at the front gate. We froze. Security? I killed the power to the ride and we scattered. My friends bailed through the maintenance hallway that led back to the food court. I took a different route, through the back exit that led to a narrow alley behind the funhouse. That's when I saw him. At the end of the alley, a man stood perfectly still under a busted light. He was wearing a hoodie, dark, baggy, with the hood up. I thought maybe it was just another worker or someone who'd gotten lost, but he wasn't moving. Not even when I stepped out into the alley. Then, all at once, he sprinted at me. I bolted into the funhouse without thinking. I figured I could lose him in the maze, but I forgot how nightmarish that place was without lights. The mirrors were warped, endless, and all I had was the dying flashlight on my phone. I could hear him following me, slow footsteps, sometimes close, sometimes far. I turned down a corridor and caught his reflection in every direction. Tall, jittery, eyes locked on me from a face half covered by the hood. At one point, I ducked behind a wall of mirrors and held my breath. I could see him in the reflections, turning in circles, whispering something to himself. Then I heard the sound of knuckles tapping the glass. Tap, 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 getting closer and closer. I sprinted again. I slipped once, slamming my shoulder into a corner, but I didn't stop. I pushed through a spinning tunnel, down a slanted hallway, and finally, I saw the exit. And just outside it, two blinding beams of light. A flashlight. I stumbled out, panting, and collapsed right into the arms of a security guard. Behind him, my two friends were already in handcuffs. I didn't even care. I looked back and yelled that someone else was in there, that we weren't alone. The guard radioed for backup, then went in. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, he came out dragging the hooded man by the wrist. A kid, maybe 19, with wild eyes and a bleeding palm, like he'd punched one of the mirrors. He wasn't one of us. He said he'd seen us sneaking in from the woods and thought it'd be fun to follow. When they asked why he chased me, he just shrugged and said, I wanted to see how far he'd run. They called the cops. We were all arrested for trespassing and banned from the park for life. But the other guy, they let him go. No warrants, no priors, just a warning. To this day, I wonder what he would have done if he caught me in that maze. Maybe nothing. Maybe something I'd never come back from. And yeah, my dad was right. I came this close to throwing everything away for one dumb night of fun. Thanks for stopping by the channel. We hope you enjoyed these 3 truly terrifying stories. If you want to hear more just like this one, subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you can be reminded when we post a new long-form video every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you have a story you'd like to hear read on the channel, email it to us at officialnightmarenarratives@gmail.com, and you might just hear your story read in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and stay spooky, friends. We'll catch you in the next one.